the oil and gas industry has been more lethal to the Louisiana coastal zone than the Corps of Engineers ever could have been. The state has been not only unwilling to recognize the linkage between oil and gas and environmental harm, it has opposed anyone who said it.
The political forces in the state of Louisiana are unwilling to ask the oil company to pay their fair share because they're, I presume, afraid the oil companies are going to go away. There's no way that the oil companies can afford to move it. So for politicians to feel like the oil company will desert us if they criticize them or if they ask them to pay a share of the damage that they caused is really not based in fact. It's based in myth.
When my family got here 200 years ago, I'm sure somebody looked around and said, this seemed like a really good place to settle. There was a good reason for it. We were 90 miles inland, and there was 90 miles worth of terra firma protecting us from the big bad storms that came out of that Gulf of Mexico. Current estimates are for every 2.7 miles of marshland reduces the storm surge by at least 1 foot. If we'd have had that extra 1 million acres of coastal marshland at the time of Katrina, certainly by anyone's estimate, we would not have had the failure of the levee system because frankly the storm surge would have been reduced considerably before it ever reached the waters around New Orleans. So the way my mind works is simply, as I think most Americans do, he who causes the damage should have to pay for it.
Louisiana's lost 2,100 square miles of land, and that's essentially the state of Delaware. If you put the state of Delaware between New Orleans and the ocean, then New Orleans doesn't need any levees. So that's how much land used to be there that has melted away.
90 to 95% of the oil and gas reserves are beyond the state boundary that are in federal water. 90 to 95% of the pumped oil and gas and 90 to 95% of the future pumping is off Louisiana.
We've been bearing the environmental cost. We've had the energy burdens of the country on our shoulders since the early 30s. I mean, look at the number of refineries that line the Mississippi River, right, between Baton Rouge and the mouth of the river. Those refineries represent billions of dollars worth of investment in infrastructure. The only thing that protects those refineries from hurricanes is coastal wetlands.
In the 60s, everybody knew that these canals were killing marsh. There wasn't any doubt about it. It was just a question of numbers. The idea that, oh, suddenly we woke up in the year 2000 and found out that what we were doing was harmful is patently false.
The United States Army Corps of Engineers, 40 years or more ago, did a study that proved unequivocally that saltwater intrusion killed coastal wetlands, killed the marshlands, killed freshwater estuaries. And that was paid for with public dollars, was publicly available and publicly published, certainly known to the oil and gas industry, and certainly should have been known to the state of Louisiana and the Department of Natural Resources here in the state of Louisiana.
I think they need to call the oil companies in and discuss with them that they have evidence those oil companies are responsible and that they want to negotiate how much the oil companies are willing to come forward with.
The problem is that the system they've left us out there with is so degraded and so collapsing. It's in the emergency room of the hospital right now.
Katrina just confirmed for many the risk, and it confirmed for the insurance companies that we are vulnerable without those wetlands. So it is logical that if you restore the wetlands, create that buffer, businesses and insurance companies are going to feel more comfortable coming back because the risk will be less. So I think it's very possible that New Orleans will be as vibrant and thriving as it ever was